on the inside, when you're talking to people, is the entire situation with the PGA and LIV and the uncertainty as much of a gong show as it appears to those of us on the outside?
When you said I covered an interesting sport, I would love just to cover the actual sport. The other stuff. That becomes difficult. Gong show is a good way of putting it. I think I'm going to steal that line. I do like that.
It's all yours.
I mean, the agreement that was announced last week, and I have had to admit this now a couple times in different interviews, and as best I can tell, there were 5 people in the world that knew this was happening before last Tuesday. And that puts me in a unique position because they actually put insider under my name on my title. And you can't imagine how unbelievably embarrassing it is to have that on your title and have no idea something like this is going to happen, because no one knew this was going to happen. Like I said, there were 5 people: the commissioner, the governor of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, a couple of hand-selected lieutenants. And it's interesting being here at the LA Open. I mean, I'm sorry, at Los Angeles Country Club, and hearing players getting asked about what this means and what the future looks like. And there's absolutely zero answers. It's a complete void of information. It's a fascinating time.
I got to imagine, and I know this has been discussed, but if I'm a PGA player, if I'm Rory McIlroy, and I got to tee off with Brooks Koepka, regardless of what our relationship is away from golf, but if I'm staring at this guy who went and took $100-odd million from the Saudis and went there amidst all the controversy, and I'm Rory and I stuck around, there is nothing that anyone can say to me that makes me feel good about this or even understands how this could happen. Like, wasn't this almost the exact complaint that the LIV golfers raised, which was they have no say, they're not making the money from the PGA, they've got no say in how the tour is run, and here we are on the back end of it, you've merged, and the guys who actually stuck around end up on the short end of the stick for the exact reasons that the guys who left cited for exiting when they did.
I think we're seeing that level of frustration. You're absolutely right. Rory McIlroy, who has been the best soldier that Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, could have ever wanted. He was an outspoken proponent. He was overly critical of LIV Golf. He drew the line. He did the famous line, "I want to be on the right side of history." He's gone virtually radio silent, and I understand why. He canceled his press conference this week at the U.S. Open. Even the last few weeks, he has become reserved. You could tell, I don't think he knew this was coming, but he had an idea that something was in the mix. Look at the other side of it. John Rahm just spoke with the media today at LACC. And he had been a very loyal PGA Tour supporter, and he said the right things, but one of the lines that stood out was, "I want to believe our leaders are doing what's right for us, but it's hard to do that right now."
How is Jay Monahan still the commissioner?
I think, and I've been asked this a couple times, and I hate doing this guy should get fired, because it seems that you always do that about coaches and managers. In this particular case, it's a legitimate question, and not because of any performance issues. We can argue that did he do a good job, did he not do a good job? I mean, everyone's going to have their opinions. My bigger concern is, how does he still have a job based on the idea that you have spent the last year being very, very critical of someone who now sits in a boardroom next to you? I don't know how that dynamic works.
And moving forward, like how do you have confidence? Because, again, I read that letter that he sent to the players that, to me, just – and again, I'm on the outside of this, man. You live this every day, but like the tone of it seems so completely off. It was like this great celebration of the PGA, and this is a great thing. There was no like, "Hey guys, I really messed up. I know you're going to be furious at me." It was like, "Hey, come on over. Let's have a little conversation over there." I really have a lot of questions. And even if somewhere down the line, I know there's been references to some type of a pot or a pool for the players who didn't go to LIV and they can make money, like a revenue sharing type of thing, and the LIV golfers can't. There's no way you can get that money back. Even setting aside like time value of money and investments, there's no way these guys are ever going to make up the money. And I don't know that is there a world where the Rory McIlroys of the world can refuse to play until there's an equitable solution to this. That might be, good money after bad money type of a situation. I just don't know how you do what Jay Monahan and the PGA seems to be wanting the players to do, which is just, "Hey, guys, we know you're kind of mad about this, but we got to move forward." How about that U.S. Open? Let's go play.
No, and look, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've heard whispers of a union, and certainly those whispers have become shouts. And that was certainly the case last Tuesday when the commissioner met with players right after this announcement. And there was anger, there was confusion, there was probably a little bit of betrayal. in that room. I think there's two parts of this equation. Well, there's kind of three parts, but one is what this actual new entity is going to look like, and we have no idea. Like there's a huge void of information right now. The other two parts that are most interesting to me right now is, one, how do those players who you just mentioned stay loyal to the PGA Tour? How do they get made whole? And that's a line that's being thrown out there now, like this is a Sopranos episode or a Goodfellas movie. Like, it's amazing that they're using that so freely right now. That's money, and it's a lot of money. But given the fact that the PGA Tour is now partners with the Public Investment Fund, which it all feels like, monopoly money to them, I don't know if that's the bigger issue than the second issue, which is how do the players who join LIV Golf come back? What does that path look like? Because I think that's going to be a harder road.
I'll tell you, the path that it looks like is they drive in their Rolls Royce and dripping money out of all their pockets. I mean, they're the guys who won in my mind. Now, I understand like just the interpersonal dynamics of it are awkward. And even the PGA that, when the golfers originally joined LIV, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Rex, but they basically, immediately got the letter that, hey, if you play in any events, you were barred from these PGA Tour events. And there were questions about could they even come back and play in majors. That obviously ended up getting resolved on most fronts here. I don't know that there's a lot of shame for the Bryson DeChambeaus of the world because, he won. He's got 100 million reasons to feel good about this. But, the fact that you've got maybe the two front men, Rory and Brooks, playing together, like, do we anticipate, are they okay in terms of like as friends at this point, or is this going to be an ice storm out there in the opening round?
I mean, they didn't like each other before LIV Golf became a thing. Go back to the PGA Championship just a few years ago at Kiowa Island. I mean, we all saw that video, and we know that what the relationship is like. It's going to be frosty, but I think in what you're hearing from players is they're really, really good at compartmentalizing, and only because they've had to do it a lot lately, where there's a lot of outside noise, there's a lot of chatter, and when you show up here, if you're John Rahm or Rory or anyone else, you really need to focus on what's going to be a very, very difficult test. Like, this golf course is going to be so demanding that every part of your game needs to be on. And as it applies to the LIV guys, it's not about if they want to come back. It's more about the administrative fact. Like, the PGA Tour has to figure out a way to create a path that's going to be punishing. So there'll be fines, there'll be suspension, but it can't be punishing enough that let's say Phil Mickelson, for example, just won't want to do it. It's going to be a very fine line.
How's Phil, who's always he can be a pretty prickly personality when he likes. If there's certain types of questions, certain types of things, he can bristle at it. That's always been part of his persona. How does he come back to this? As really, I know Greg Norman was a big piece of this, but Phil, in a lot of ways, was kind of the face of this whole thing.
He was, and he got paid very, very well for it. And I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know that he does come back. It's interesting. I talked to two players just last week, on Tuesday when this was all sort of breaking, and I asked both of them, do you even want to come back to the PGA Tour? And the answer from both was, I don't know. And look, they have gotten comfortable with a lifestyle, playing 14 events a year, 54 holes, short pants, music, shotgun starts, big money, everything that went into it. So now you're asking them, okay, now you're going to have to change your lifestyle and go back to all the things you said you wanted to get away from. It's not an easy choice for any of these guys. And when it comes to Phil specifically, at his age, does he really want to come back and put up with whatever it is he's going to have to put up with?
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.